Longbox Review, Episode 10. Hi, this is Eric from Longbox Review at longboxreview.wordpress.com.
Hey, this is Travis from Oddfellow's Thoughts at oddfellowsthoughts.wordpress.com.
Today we're going to talk about, as a lot of people have, either blogging or other podcasts, but today it's Travis and my turn to talk about the new DC 52, at least the first 2 weeks worth of comics. At least the ones that we both, either of us have read. There were a couple that neither of us have read. So, of course, we won't comment on them, at least except to note which one we did not read and probably why. So I guess we will talk about it to some degree.
Yeah.
So let's just get into it because we have a lot to do here. Action Comics #1. Travis, you didn't read that one, did you?
No, I did not. And it's a Superman title.
Is that why?
Yeah, basically.
Because it's Superman, you didn't read it.
Yeah, I'm just not interested in Superman. Granted, Grant Morrison might make me interested in Superman, but I just, don't have a whole lot of interest in Superman. So I may pick it up in trade if I hear enough excitement about it. Otherwise, it's a Superman title, and I'm okay with not collecting it.
Well, now, so did you read Grant Morrison's All-Star Superman?
No, I haven't.
Okay, see, Travis,
But I watched the film based on it.
Did you like that?
Yeah.
Okay, you should read All-Star Superman at some point. You should just read it.
Oh.
This Action Comics #1, I thought so. When I got these comics from the first week from DC, that went to the very top of my stack because one, it's Grant Morrison, and two, I do like Superman, so I wanted to read it. But to have Grant Morrison be doing this relaunch of Superman in Action Comics was a great move, I think, on DC. And I don't know, maybe Grant's like, okay, I'm doing this comic, and DC's like, okay. But either way, this was a great return to some of the history of the Man of Steel from like the Golden Age. So you have All-Star Superman, which was Grant Morrison's kind of homage plus love letter to the Silver Age Superman stories. This new #1 of Action Comics was kind of like returning Superman to his Golden Age roots to a certain degree, and I loved it. This was a great introduction to Superman for the new 52. It's a great jumping on point for new readers to get an idea of what the Man of Steel is like now. And it was just a fun read too. The bit where there's a bit at the beginning. And I should have mentioned this earlier. For anybody who hasn't read any of these comics, we will be talking about plot points and other things. So it will be spoilers. Just be aware of that. So at the very beginning, there's this bit where Superman's holding a criminal above his head like he's going to drop him, and that's part of the Golden Age history of Superman because he would do that. He was the champion of the people, the champion of the oppressed. He was all about justice, not like the Superman that we've been reading for the last 30 years or so. So I like this. I really like this return to the way Superman used to be portrayed, but it's done in a modern way. And like I said, it was a great introduction to this character, and I can't wait to see where this goes. So yes, you should I think pick this up in trade, Travis, or just go buy #1 and go from there.
Uh-huh.
Have I convinced you?
No. Grant Morrison sells it partway for me. So I'm interested for that. I don't know that I want to at this point. I don't know that I'm interested in Superman's backstory enough for this to interest me.
Mm-hmm.
Now, if I start reading some of the other comics that Superman is in, that I get, where he's part of the team and he acts in a certain way that's different from what I'm used to with the Blue Boy Scout,
mm-hmm.
that may make me want to go back and read that if they're playing off of whatever um, Grant is laying down as being the basis for this guy and why he is and who he is.
Well, I certainly hope they do that because it's funny that you just said the Blue Boy Scout
Uh-huh.
because that's not what he is in this comic anyway. And I
Right.
don't think, I mean, we only saw him in that one panel basically in Justice League #1, but it doesn't seem like that's the portrayal of that character any longer.
Yeah.
Of course, we had Superman, the comic Superman has #1 has not come out yet. I think that's next week. Well, I'm
Uh,
sorry. It'll be the week that this podcast is released, but so we'll see how he's portrayed there in like the modern
right.
time frame.
Hmm.
But yeah, I and again I thought this is a great Action Comics #1. This is a great jumping on point for any new reader. So I think it succeeds very well in for the new readers coming into it to find out what Superman's like now, and also for us longtime Superman fans to see this new and improved, I think, interpretation of the Man of Steel.
Okay.
All right. Next and we're going in alphabetical order through the weeks. So next is Animal Man by Jeff Lemire, Travel Foreman, Dan Green, and I want to say, oh shoot, where's the credits on this? I want to talk about who else did this, and Laverne, oh boy,
Yeah. Good luck.
Kinzierski did the interior and cover colors. And I think that's important to note because of the way that the art is in this book. So you read that one, correct?
Yes, I did.
All right. Why don't you start off with that one?
Um, I really liked it. I like the opening page, for instance, the
Yes.
interview. That was a
That
great way to
yeah.
set the comic up. Give us a flavor of what Buddy is about and kind of where he is in his life. I really like the story. I think it's interesting. It giving us a little bit of his family life there. What his own personal concerns are. How his family sees things and whatnot. Gives us a little bit of the hero shot. Towards the middle of the comic, and then of course plays into some really twisted stuff towards the end, which I thought was awesome.
That was awesome.
The art is interesting. Whereas I don't think it all looks great and whatnot. It gives us what we need, but I don't necessarily think it's pretty. But when it gets to the dream sequences and stuff, and the twisted and weird stuff, and the cover, for instance,
Mm-hmm.
I think the stuff is awesome.
Yeah.
So I'm not sure. I don't know. It's like, if they're showing us something really bizarre, I love the artwork.
Mm-hmm.
But the opening part of it, I don't know. I don't know. I go back and forth on the art. Like I said, it works, but I don't necessarily consider it pretty. I don't know if it's because the lines are so thin. I'm not sure. I'm not, and I don't know if that's the artist or if that's the inker that makes that. Because you mentioned the inker and color. But like I said, like the dream sequence stuff and whatnot. I think it works. I think the art works for the type of comic I think it's going to be.
Mm-hmm.
Because don't you get the impression that this is going to be a kind of a quasi horror comic in a way? I mean,
that's certainly where I think or where they're trying to go with it. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah. I agree with you on just about everything you said there. Actually, I think everything you said there. When I first read that, yeah, I love that. Love the article excerpt because you get the flavor of what Buddy Baker is like now and what's happened. And then I open that next page and you got that two page spread here, And I had the same reaction, and I thought exactly the same thing that you just said about the line work. I thought, well, maybe it's just because it's too thin, and I thought some of the faces were inconsistent. And it's Travel Foreman, who's the pencil artist, but he also inked some of his own work along with Dan
Right.
Green. So I don't know who did what exactly. So maybe, but I think also, and that the reason I mentioned the color artist is I think that the way that the coloring is done to give the art some depth, because a lot of it is not necessarily shadows penciled in or inked in. It's the use of color to denote that.
Right.
So, but I think overall it doesn't quite mesh, doesn't quite gel for me,
Mm-hmm.
this combination. But I'm willing to read through, to continue on with it because
Right.
I like the character and I like this take on it. And I'm, we come from reading a bunch of Vertigo titles from before even Vertigo was
Was vertical.
Vertigo.
Right.
And this reminds me of that a little bit at least.
Oh,
Not just because it's Animal Man, but because, just that art style that Vertigo kind of has. So
right.
I'm okay with it. It just does kind of bother me a little bit. But as you said, when they get to the black and white, or not the black and white, well, no, I guess it is. It's black and white with some red in there
Yeah.
to accentuate the red thing.
Well, you know what? I think that's the stuff that Foreman inks. Because you look at the cover, Foreman did the inking on the cover. And you look at the cover and you look at the dream sequences, and the art looks the same. It has thicker lines
Hmm.
and stuff.
So you think it's Dan Green that we're having issues with?
I think that's what gives it that thinner line.
Yeah.
That, and there's just some places where things look a little too flat.
Yeah.
There's not enough shade. There's not enough shading for me. For me.
Hmm. Yeah.
I guess.
Exactly.
Like the final scene, for instance. That flat void that's supposed to be the grass. I mean, I know it's the grass, but I mean, like,
Yeah.
obviously I'm
It's
not
just
a comic
splash of
artist. I shouldn't be critical of such things, but I'm going to be. It looks like a flat plane that
Hmm.
she's on. I mean, so the garden hose looks strange laying there because of that plane, but I can ignore that, I guess, the garden hose, because of how twisted the rest of the scene is. So, and I love his family. I think Jeff does a great job of writing what we could call typical family life. I
First,
mean, other than the conversation they're having at the beginning, it's pretty standard. He's trying to talk to his wife. The kids are, interrupting while he's trying to talk to the wife, or at least that's how my family life is.
hmm.
And look, it's a married superhero. That must have gotten past DC editorial, right? Had to have.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. Well, but then again, Animal Man's not exactly a tier one character, right?
I know,
So
I know, and that's a huge part of who Buddy is
yeah,
his
yeah,
family.
yeah,
And
definitely.
obviously, in this title, they're making it a huge part of who he is.
So
So,
okay, so let me ask you this. So we read the Animal Man comic from years ago,
yep.
and do you think this is a good, successful first issue for a new reader?
Um,
Because some of the comments that we're talking about right now, I think we're kind of connecting them to our experience previous to this, and of course we can't help but do that with pretty much everything that we're going to talk about here.
uh-huh.
But how
Well,
successful is this for new?
I have two other comic book readers in my house, and neither one of them are familiar with Animal Man outside of um, the DC 52, that maxi series. They have no
Oh,
experience with Animal Man or Buddy Baker.
mm-hmm.
They both liked it. I think had some of the same opinions on the art and whatnot. Do I think this is new reader friendly? I think it is. I think that it informs you with enough information you need to without being too preachy or too talky and just giving us information. It all. I mean, like I said, that article alone sets up so much in a perfect way. I think that I think this would be interesting to a new reader. The art worries me in that, you pick up a lot of other comic books and it's flashier, more bright, more colorful art.
Mm-hmm.
And so if you're somebody that's looking for a flashy superhero comic, this isn't the comic for you. But if you're interested in just a interesting story, yeah, I think this has that without having to have any prior information about Animal Man.
Mm-hmm.
Don't you?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I think so. But yeah, I think in some ways it's perhaps not as accessible as other titles, but we can't. Not all of the 52 can be the same kind of story and art and interest that people.
Well, it would be horrible if it was.
Oh yeah. So I think so I agree with you on everything you've said about Animal Man. So.
I mean, this comic isn't supposed to be filling the superhero, Batman Superman niche. I hope, because if that was what it's supposed to fill, it's not doing that.
Mm-hmm.
Is it filling something a little different niche, that somewhat Vertigo-ish type niche? And I know we're referencing that because the character was used in that kind of thing, but that's kind of how the story's written. And it's written by a guy who I think that is his forte, is to write that kind of off the beaten path kind of a thing.
Mm-hmm.
It works really well for that.
Mm-hmm. And it is part of the DC's The Dark line.
Is this one of the ones?
It is. Yeah, okay. I just looked it up.
Yeah, it works for that.
Yeah, I think it does too. So will you continue to get this one?
Yes, I will.
Yeah. Can you say right now that any of the ones you've read, it's on your pull list no matter what until they just go off the deep end and you're done with it, or is this I'll see where it goes for now type thing?
I'll see where it goes for now type thing. I'm not such a huge Animal Man fan that I'm going to get it regardless.
Yeah.
When we start talking about Green Arrow and stuff like that, stuff that I've always collected, I mean, it has to go way, way off the deep end before
Right.
Because I suffer from character loyalty. Animal Man's not one of those, but there was nothing in this comic that told me I shouldn't be picking up the next issue.
Yeah, exactly. Okay, let's go to Batgirl #1 by Gail Simone. Artist is Ardian. I hope I'm saying this right. Siaf. And boy, I really need to learn how to pronounce names.
You and me both.
Vicente Cifuentes. I hope. Let's see here. Oh gosh, I said the names, but I don't know who did what here. So CF is the penciler, yeah. Cifuentes is the inker, and looks like Ulysses Ariola does the colors. And I want to start mentioning the color artists because I think they're so important to the success of the comic. So, and in this case, the color work on this I thought was really good. But let's see. Why don't you go first on this one too?
I am on the fence about this comic.
Really?
Yep.
I'm somewhat surprised.
It didn't. Why is that?
Oh, go ahead. Go ahead.
Well, I got my big thing is I wanted there to be, and of course this is exactly why I picked up the first issue of the last Batgirl series, read it and got irritated, and then didn't read it the rest of the way. She has a miracle. Well, what is that miracle? My issue is it says in here, regardless if we dump all of the prior DC history, we go with just this title, shows that she got shot through and through, and she was, was bound to a wheelchair, and somehow she had a miracle or whatever, and she's better.
Mm-hmm.
How? What? Is that going to be part of the story? It doesn't feel like it's actually part of the story. It feels like there was these quick pages in the middle there to explain why Dad's acting the way he's acting in it, and I don't know. It almost felt like those pages weren't even needed. That those pages were lip service to those people who are pissed off the fact that she isn't Oracle anymore. If we took those pages out, took all the reference to it would be just the same comic, wouldn't it? But we get 2 more pages of, what's going on with the new villain that's been introduced, right?
Right.
Or am I wrong?
I'm sorry, if you took out those pages
If I took out those pages, we took out those pages because
of the
this is
flashback.
this is a relaunch, and this is starting anew. We don't need that history. Is that history there just to give lip service to the Oracle fans
Oh
and
yeah.
the people who want the continuity, which continuity is supposed to basically all be starting over as a whole? I mean,
Hmm.
this is one of those ones where they kind of fudge back into the old,
Well,
and but it's not part of the story. I mean, obviously it's part of the story because they wrote it in here, but it almost doesn't feel like it matters to the character and the story that's being told.
well, it does matter in one aspect, um, I think, but we'll get to that in a second. I agree with you on the 2 pages being, as you say, lip service to the old fans.
Mm-hmm.
I as far as I'm concerned, except for one small thing. No, I guess it's not small, but one thing at the end. They could have just kept that out, and we got
Right.
it in issue 2 or 3 or whatever. Uh, but we did not need it for this story to introduce Barbara Gordon to the general audience, to any new readers, as Batgirl. All I know is Barbara Gordon is Batgirl. I mean, that's why they went with Barbara to begin with as Batgirl in this relaunch, is because I think for the general populace, because of the Batman TV show and maybe some of the other, like the animated series and whatnot,
Mm-hmm.
Barbara Gordon is Batgirl to them.
Yeah, I don't buy that, but whatever.
Well, that's what DC's saying. So,
I know that's what DC's saying, but I don't
but
buy it because Dick would be Robin. So,
well,
anyway.
okay, you're right. Yeah. Um, uh, but before we get to that aspect that I'm referring to, I just want to real quick. I thought this was a really good comic in general. I enjoyed it. Batgirl's back. Um, I thought Gail Simone did a really good job uh, introducing us again to this character. I don't know so much about this new villain, the whatever what is he called, Mirror or something?
Your guy.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Mirror guy. Well, we'll see. Gail Simone can pull off some bizarre characters as bad guys. So I'm sure it will be a successful thing. And the little fight that she has with those punks
Yeah.
at the beginning, it gives you a nice showcase of what she can do and how she's reacting to things.
Mm-hmm.
Um, let's see here. But then we get to the end where the mirror guy is back. And this is the aspect I'm talking about. So he pulls a gun on her and she freezes. Now, that would make no sense whatsoever. Now, granted, Gail could have written it differently, and somehow the same ending could have occurred without
Right.
that. But having that in there, coupled with the flashback scene where the Joker shoots her,
Mm-hmm.
I thought that was a great juxtaposition between the two things. And it shows that she despite the fact that she puts on leather and armor and goes out and fights crime, she's still human and reacts in a very human way to a situation.
Uh-huh.
So
So is this the first time somebody's pulled a gun on her since she put the Batgirl costume back on?
is it
Because
is
I
it
understand the reaction, but man, is she gonna have this reaction all the time then? What makes this time more special than I don't know, how long has she been wearing the Batgirl costume again? We don't have anything that gives us that kind of reference as to how long she's been back as Batgirl.
that's
Do
true?
we? It's been a while since
No, we don't.
I don't got anything. So she's never had anybody else pull a gun on her? Or nobody else in a costume pull a gun on her?
Hmm. Well, and I was just I'm flipping through the pages here with the scene with the punks, and they've got
Uh-huh.
guns, but I don't
Right.
see where. Yeah, they don't point them at her.
So what makes this fundamentally more so to, you know, why is this gun more important
Hmm. Yeah, you're right. That it could.
to give her that scene?
it could be, well, like you said, we don't know. How is this her first time back as Batgirl? We don't know that. And if that's the case, then I can understand that reaction.
Uh-huh.
Um, but if it's not, then yeah, it's a problematic story point. But just given what we have in this issue, I thought it was a nice uh, tying those two things together.
Sure.
And of course
Well,
it sets her up.
I'll say right up front, I'm looking at this comic, came into this comic wanting some answers.
Hmm.
As a somewhat disgruntled, they took away good stuff and replacing it with something. So my litmus test for it is relatively high as far as that goes. And that's my dissatisfaction with the comic, is that it didn't answer my questions.
Hmm.
As far as it as a comic as its own, and the setup and whatnot for it, I like it.
Hmm.
The art's fine.
I really
It's
like the art.
it's dynamic. It's exciting. I like Gail's characterization of people. I'm already interested in her roommate. As obnoxious as she is, I think she'll be fun. Um, you know, um, I'm curious to see if the detectives show up as reoccurring characters in the story.
Hmm.
You know, new reader friendly. Sure, I guess it's new reader friendly. Uh,
See,
I still wanted answers though.
see, I went to it not. Let's see. So there's been a few things that I've been reading online or listening to in other podcasts, and people making comments about the new 52 stuff, and one that keeps coming up. Well, basically two. So you, like you said, you came to it looking for some answers. Um, And then two, people keep bringing up, well, this is supposed to be a new DC universe, and a lot of people are complaining about how a lot of this stuff isn't new. It's continuation
Yeah,
from what came before, and
right.
and I understand that viewpoint to a certain degree, but also, it Dan DiDio and Jim Lee and Jeff Johns and others have been out there ever since they announced the New 52 that some things weren't going to change that much because they were successful things like the Batman
Right.
stuff, like the Green Lantern stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so I came to it expecting certain things, and in particular with Batgirl here, they did talk about how the Killing Joke was still in continuity. So I already knew that going in as an old time reader, that was part of it. It was just a matter of, okay, how are they going to get Barbara back as Batgirl, not paralyzed anymore, and still have that bit of history involved.
Right.
And so I tend to be the kind of reader where I just kind of go along with the flow until something comes up that goes, wait a minute, this is a wrong characterization, or this doesn't work, or whatever. So I'm
Mm-hmm.
I'm willing to give it a huge benefit of the doubt, and not expect a lot of answers to begin with, because I like the story to unfold over time, as opposed to getting a bunch of stuff. Which we'll get to this later, but JLI did that to me, is like just throwing all this information at you, and it was just too much.
Mm-hmm.
So, like I said, I'm usually very open to just letting things move forward slowly, or however quickly the writer wants to do it, uh, as long as it makes sense. And so I was okay with how this was portrayed. But yeah, you do bring up a good point about her freezing at the end. While it makes sense in the context of that particular story, does it work in a larger framework of her being Batgirl going after
Right.
criminals all the time?
Right.
So.
And I guess I was just irritated by the reference to the miracle, and then that was it. I almost wish that they wouldn't even imply that to start out with. I guess I don't necessarily need to have the specific answer is exactly how it is that she's suddenly operating again. They could tell us that as the story progresses, because obviously you can only squish so much stuff into a new reader friendly book
Hmm.
before it becomes overwhelming or bogged down. But I don't know. I think that part, that the miracle, I don't know,
Yeah.
just
Well, again, I didn't get so caught up on that. It's just
Yeah.
I figure at some point Gail Simone's going to give us a flashback story where she struggles through that, and we get shown how things progressed, where we end up with her at issue number 1.
Mhm.
I would bet money we get a story like that at some
Yeah.
point.
And I almost wish I had a better frame of reference of how long it's been since she's,
Oh yeah,
well, how long she's been doing this.
the timeline,
Yeah.
and not
I mean,
just for this character in this book, but in general.
yeah. I mean,
I wish we had some
I know they
timeline
don't,
references.
no one's going to commit to that to some degree, but of course, I've already grown up with 30 years of DC, so, you know, I, I unfortunately am inflicted with that whole continuity and knowing it all, or knowing a large chunk of it and wanting it to all kind of fit together in some way. And so it'll take me a while to let go of that. I'm assuming it's obviously she must relatively be new to being Batgirl again because she's just getting around to moving out and moving away from Dad and having Dad take care of her and whatnot, which I thought was a good scene. I thought
Hmm.
that was that was well written in itself
Yeah.
and stuff. So I guess I shouldn't say that I didn't like the comic. There were just pieces of it that I wanted and I didn't get.
Sure. Yeah, and I
But
think, would you agree that you could say that about a lot of the stuff that we read for these first 2 weeks?
yeah, I don't know. This was the only comic I went into wanting answers as to how it's coming out from what was before.
Oh, really?
Yeah, the rest of them I think I read more looking at face value. This one there was a larger investment in for me because I liked Oracle Barbara Gordon. I fall into the camp of I think she was a stronger and more rich character for what she was before, and regardless of how they want to spin this feels like going backwards.
Mm.
Her being Batgirl,
Hmm.
the name alone feels like it's going backwards. Obviously she can't be Batwoman because there's already a Batwoman.
Well, yeah, and they make reference. There's a reference in there too. I know
Yeah,
because
well, yeah,
they confuse her with, or they call her Batwoman. She's like,
right,
I'm Batgirl.
right, and that was amusing, and I would think there would be some of that. I mean, hell, these redheaded superheroes hopping around and whatnot. I don't know if the average citizen in the would pick the two out,
Yeah.
and so I think that stuff's fun and amusing. But yeah, I think this is the one comic just because of where the character was and where the character is now. I was went in with a lot more filters, I guess, than some of these others that I just read as being what they were. And if suddenly they ended up being younger or a little different or whatever, fine. That's because that's part of the relaunch, and they think they need a new take on the character.
Hmm. So
And of
is
course,
this one of those that you're gonna wait and see? You'll get it, but
yeah, yeah,
you'll wait and see.
yep. It's on my pull list, and I'll get it for a while. Very rarely does Gale disappoint me.
Yeah.
So that keeps me going forward with it for a while. Plus, like I said, as I've said in prior podcasts, I bought issue number 1 of the last Batgirl, and then went screw this for a year, and then had to go back and buy all the trades and whatnot from the last Batgirl series because it ended up being incredibly awesome. So there's nothing to say that this one won't end up being that way either, because this comic in some ways left me the same way as the last Batgirl number 1 did,
Hmm.
where the answers that I wanted out of the first issue weren't there. It pissed me off, and so I chucked it aside and said I'm not putting my money into that. So
Yeah.
I'm not making that mistake again. So it is on my pull list. It'll stay on my pull list for a while because it wasn't a bad comic. I enjoyed it. The rest of my family enjoyed it. Newest comic reader at my house, my 10-year-old, she enjoyed it. So yeah.
Yeah, it's on my pull list. And unless they, like I said before, they go off the deep end somewhere, I'll be getting this one.
Yeah.
All right, next is Batwing
Yeah.
by Judd Winnick and art by Ben Oliver, colors by Brian Reber. I just got this because I wasn't going to get it originally, um, but I heard some buzz about it, and I thought, okay, I'll check it out just to see what the first issue is like.
Hmm.
Um, and the reason I wasn't going to get it is because do I really need to read another comic about a Batman character?
Right. That's kind of how I was too. I mean, I collect so many of the Batman comics,
Yeah,
you
yeah,
know, and and I was also, hell, why this character?
yeah,
I mean, my big thing was this guy had like three panels maybe in the Batman Incorporated. Why in the world would they pick? I mean, of all
yeah.
the things,
hmm
why would they pick this?
Well, and okay, well, for one, I think the easy answers are one, because we have a black character, so that because
Yeah.
that addresses the diversity that they talked about, and two,
Right.
he's from Africa, so we
And
have
is in Africa. Yeah.
exactly. We don't have yet another comic based in the Northeast New York metropolitan area.
Right.
So I like that. The idea of the locale, and I do kind of like that whole Batman Incorporated idea in some ways. Other ways I think it's kind of dumb, but the fact that this guy is taking on crime and helping people in his native land, that's so different from ours. That's kind of appealing. Um,
Hmm.
However, I like the fact that he's a cop, in a very corrupt thing, a
Hmm.
corrupt situation. Although that again, that's it's sort of like uh, James Gordon in Gotham City, so you have echoes of that. But we do know that's a reality in
Right.
in many areas of the world. Um, and the character, the officer Kia Okuru, that was an interesting character to bring in, as a potential either helper in the police force, or maybe even they partner up, you know, down the road. Um, but I really didn't care for much of anything else in this other than the art.
Really? Well, I thought the art was, you know, just this side of phenomenal.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I really
It's
like the
so it,
art.
it opens up so dynamic. It's like,
hmm
I mean, so
there's
as far as that goes, I mean, it's just like, the first like 3 pages are just like, wow. I thought,
see, and
I was
I like the latter half of it better, but yeah,
yeah.
I mean it's consistent. So yeah, I opened up with that, man, and I don't again it. I put a lot of success in the art of these comics to the colorist, and I think the colorist did a phenomenal job in this.
Yeah.
But
Oh yeah.
it's hard to say with this because the art, it's not the pencils by and inks by somebody else. The art is by Ben Oliver with the colors
Yeah.
by Brian Reaver. So,
Yeah.
um, the shading and the depth, I don't know if that's Ben Oliver or if it's the color artist. So either way, yeah, it's great. I like it. I just wasn't impressed enough to get the second issue or more. So
Mm. So there wasn't enough story there to hook you into
no, not really.
what's going on in these people's lives and whatnot.
No.
It felt pretty stereotypical or standard.
Yeah, I guess you could say that. I mean, like I said,
No,
there's echoes.
no interest in not just massacre. I mean, I don't know that he in himself,
Oh,
that villain is interesting, but the massacre itself, the other um, African heroes that their
that's probably
IPs
the
were found
only
there.
probably the only story point that I actually kind of latched onto. That, and like I said, and the officer, the female officer that gets introduced. That
Hmm.
those things kind of interested me a little bit. But yeah, that villain, that he's just a killer.
Right,
At
it's just a
least in
butcher.
this issue, he's just a killer, and I have no interest in just characters who just kill. No matter how gruesome we are shown, he does so at the end. And then I just have logistically, I have a problem with him, Batwing, getting stabbed through the chest with that
How does
machete.
he survive? How does he
How
survive
did he
that?
survive that? And it's because at the beginning of it, hold on, I'm flipping through real quick. Because
Uh-huh.
we see at the beginning of the comic is actually later than the end of the comic.
Right.
This is
So you don't have
six.
so you don't have an interest as to how he manages that, huh?
Well, I do. I am interested, but not enough to go buy number 2.
Okay. I'm going to buy number 2.
Well, you can tell me
Well, that's
how
fine.
he survives it
I
in
mean, there's
6
enough
months.
to me. There's enough there to make me go, that's interesting.
Yeah.
The setting is interesting enough for me to go forward with it further, just because it is set in Africa with an African hero. So other than that quick introduction with Batman in there, to give us that reference as to why he has some of the stuff that he has, I'm assuming I'm not going to see a bunch of people I haven't seen before. This is basically a real introduction to a new character, because there really wasn't much of an introduction to him in the Batman Incorporated. I'm curious to see how he survives having a machete shoved through his chest. And the art is kick ass.
Oh yeah.
So I can, if the art was shaky, I might be more on the fence as to whether or not I was going to pick up the next one or whatnot. But to me, there's enough little interesting things in this that I'm willing to give the next issue a try and see what it's like, just because I don't think the comic is bad, and I'm interested in supporting something that's a little bit different.
Yeah.
It's not hugely different, but it's got enough little things to it. As long as they don't lose all those little things along the way and it become a generic superhero story, then I don't know that I'll keep collecting it or not.
Well, I certainly hope those things that you're referring to, I hope that they don't basically mimic Batman.
Right.
And what I've seen so far is that we get shades of that.
It's close.
It's very close, and I think that's probably why I'm not that interested in it. It's not different enough, despite the fact that it's a character that is, I assume, because we don't know the history of the character just yet, but he's not Bruce Wayne. He's not Bruce Wayne in any way that I can see.
No.
And the fact that it's in Africa as well, but there's too many similarities to make it that interesting to me.
Well, it looks like going forward, just kind of looking ahead at some of the solicitations and whatnot, that the guy's a ex-child soldier himself. So.
Oh, well, see that. Oh, shoot, maybe I should pick it up. That sounds interesting.
Right. It's one of those things. Maybe it's interesting enough not to pick it up now. Let it ride and pick up the trade. They swear up and down they're going to, even the ones that, unless they have to cancel them immediately, that the first arcs of all this stuff's going to be in trade. That's what I keep. So maybe it's, maybe it's something you don't pick up the singles for and you pick up in trade and whatnot. Like I said, if this isn't on my pull list, I'll probably pay the full price for another one and see what it's like, and make a maybe more of a decision as to what I want to do or not do with it. With that, see where the next thing goes. I'm almost willing to give it past the first arc just to see, once we get past an introduction arc, what's after that, if it survives that. I mean, I don't know how quickly they're going to crush these books that don't have sales.
Yeah.
But right now, I don't see how in the world they can make any decisions on any of these books based on sales, because the sales for almost all of the books are through the roof in comparison to anything that they were ever remotely prepared for. So I don't know.
Okay, shall we move on?
Sure.
All right. From one Batman comic to another, Detective Comics #1.
Yeah.
Well, this will be fun.
I like this comic.
Oh, really? Wow. The way you just said, yeah, I thought, he hated it.
No, there's some interesting stuff in here just as a long-term Batman reader, and I've read all of well, you want to talk about who does the book?
Yeah, go ahead.
Go ahead. Well, that Tony Daniel, I think I pretty much read all of his Batman stuff, the stuff that he's written, the stuff that he's drawn, because he drew with Grant Morrison and whatnot. And I think it's interesting is, of course, this has all the hallmarks of his Batman. As far as I know, basically 2 or 3 pages in, there'll be a 2-page spread with Batman on it. Always. Every single of his comics has it. Not complaining. I love the daylights out of it. I'm just saying that, I pretty much They all have it. I mean, you go back and look, they all have it. They all have
Mm-hmm.
at least 1 2 page spread and whatnot. But he changed his style. He's changed his style. His style is much, his art is much looser
Oh,
in
really?
this. And I don't think it has to do with Ryan Wynn doing the inks. Yeah. I think he's changed his style so he's a little quicker. Because, of course, writing and drawing a comic on a month-to-month basis and meeting all of your deadlines has to be hard,
Oh,
doesn't it?
yeah.
I mean, you must live and breathe this book. And he does another book, right? He also writes Savage Hawkman, right? So how he's doing both of those, I have, and doing the full art for a book, I have no idea.
Yeah.
But
But
mm,
you can tell, or at least it seemed to me, and again, maybe it's the inker. You can't really know who's rushing through things, but that 2 page spread that you mentioned,
uh-huh.
when I turned that page and I saw that, I thought, wow, that looks really good. That's
Mm,
good art. And then I go through the rest of the book. I'm like,
yeah.
it's kind of
Oh,
the quality is not quite there.
yeah. But I think that's him, and I think that's him, having to produce more.
Right.
And
So yeah, he spent.
I know there's been some question about, okay, so if DC's going to hit all of their deadlines on cue and whatnot, are we going to get sloppy or
Hmm.
not as sharp of work based on that?
Hmm.
I guess that might be the
Well,
case.
see, I think this comics is an example of that. But you can definitely tell that he spent a lot of time on that 2 page spread
Sure.
of Batman, and you got Gotham City in the background. Looks gorgeous.
Uh-huh.
And then like I say, you turn the page and it's a little, I don't know. Uh, it looks rushed to me. I don't know how best to say that,
Sure.
but then there are other panels, I should say, not pages, but panels where it looks good again. So I
Hmm.
think it just depends on where he decided to really focus and do the art.
Put a little more energy.
Yeah, yeah, spend a little more time on it. Overall, I liked it for the most part. I think sometimes his art doesn't remind you. Okay, so back to that 2 page spread. I keep coming back to that, but um,
Sure.
it, the work on this reminds me a little bit of Jim Lee's interpretation of Batman
Okay.
a little degree at least. But then
Uh-huh.
there are other pages in here that reminds me of Frank Miller's Dark Knight.
Yes. Yes. Yeah.
And is that intentional on Daniel's part, or is that
Uh,
just his style? Because I'm not
well,
that familiar with his work.
See, and I don't know because he changed his style. His style's different. I read something somewhere where he's talking about the fact that he was having to tweak how how he was doing stuff, um, to meet the demands that were there, um, for producing, the volume that needs to be produced, and because this is different. This is it's different than anything I've seen him do before.
Hmm.
The way the panels are set and the way the characters are on the page is him. I mean, I can recognize it as being him. Like I said, with the 2 pages in, there's going to be this 2 page spread. There's just certain things. There's certain things that how he does stuff that's always there. But the actual lines themselves and the art is different than anything I've seen him do before.
Hmm.
So, and that may just be his what he's changing to meet this demand that there is now, because they're towards the end of him writing Batman, because he was writing Batman before they swapped titles. He wasn't doing the artwork; he was doing the cover, but he wasn't doing the interior art. Other people were doing the interior art,
Hmm.
and I'm sure that had to do with the fact is just how does he do all of those things at once?
Oh yeah, yeah. I understand the
So I
demands of the job,
always
but
think that we can expect to see the art change as it moves along, issue to issue. I would suspect, because
hmm.
I'm betting he's still trying to find his happy medium.
Hmm.
But we'll see, or at least I'll see, because I know I'll be getting it.
And I'm fine
Story
with an
was freaking
artist.
cool, I thought,
Say that again.
because I thought the story was cool.
Okay, so yeah, let's talk about that. Um,
Okay,
what, I'm sorry. Let's back up one second. Um,
sure.
I agree with you on the art, and I don't mind about an artist developing their style, their look for a book.
Uh-huh.
Even a seasoned artist, because look at, like, for example, Keith Giffen. When he first
Hmm.
started, he had a very clean line. It was very reminiscent of other artists about that time period when he was doing Legion of Superheroes. But over time, his style got looser and looser, and it became more. We saw more of his style as opposed to him drawing like somebody else,
Right.
like Mike Grell or whatever. Um,
Right.
and, so I'm fine with that. What I don't like is when an artist in, apes another one intentionally
Mm.
for no other reason than to, that's, I don't know,
Right. And
that's
you
to be
feel like he's
expected.
aping
Hmm?
those two,
Well,
and you feel like he's aping those two artists.
well, not so much Jim Lee. I think just that two-page spread looked a lot like a Batman image I've seen Jim Lee draw. But what I see mostly is the Frank Miller, and it's not just the art. That bit at the end, towards the end, where Batman's fighting Joker and the Joker's stabbing him. That reminded me a lot of the Dark Knight story, where that same exact thing happens.
Mm.
It was just too similar to something else I've already read involving Batman and the Joker. So
Mm.
I'm really hesitant about this particular comic. But
You just don't like it because it's written by an artist.
nope,
Just admit
no,
it.
no, that has nothing to do
Yeah.
with it. Has nothing, because I know Tony Daniel as a writer more than I do an artist.
Oh, that's right. Okay.
But to be fair, I have not been all that impressed with Mr. Daniel's work as a writer. So, but I thought this was okay. I wasn't blown away by it. Batman's going after the Joker. The Joker's doing this weird thing with the doll maker,
Yep.
whoever that is, and we'll talk about the end to this in a minute. I thought it was a nice enough Batman fights Joker story,
Yeah.
but that's about it.
Yeah.
I wasn't really impressed with this. This being one of DC's flagship titles, Detective Comics. You have Action Comics, Detective Comics. Those are flagship titles for this company, and I was not impressed by this new number one.
Is it still? I don't know that it's a flagship
Well,
anymore.
just speaking in terms of the historical.
Well, sure, but that's all been tossed out the door.
Okay, you're right.
But you're right. You're right. I mean, I really thought that they should have kept him on Batman and should have kept Snyder on Detective. But
Oh, that's
yeah,
right. Snyder was doing that.
yeah,
Hmm.
yeah. They
Hmm.
swapped titles, and I don't know why that is. Other than people quickly visually recognize Batman as obviously is a Batman title. Detective, what is that? Unless you look at the cover and say, oh, it's got Batman on it, so it must have
Hmm.
something to do with Batman Joker. You're not, there's quicker name recognition for one than there is for the other if you're not already steeped in comic books.
Hmm.
I don't know. I thought there was lots of interesting things in here. They reintroduce Arkham, or the
Oh, the
potential for
character.
Arkham in this. Well, not just the character. This is our first
Oh, I see.
reintroduce to Arkham as they're taking him to the crazy bin, as opposed to just hauling him off to actual jail.
Hmm.
You know,
No, wait a minute. Are you sure?
when they've got him in the straitjacket,
Right.
Arkham talks about the fact that he's my patient and that he's going to Arkham, don't they? And that he's not going to.
No, I don't think he actually says anything about Arkham Asylum. They wanted. Oh,
Well, they say they're going to take him. They say they're going to take him to Blackgate, and he
right.
says no. There's not a snowflake's chance in hell, or whatever.
Oh, you sure? But yeah, I don't.
Snowflake's chance in Lucifer's toilet. He's my patient,
Yeah.
which obviously means he's not going to Blackgate.
Oh, right. You're right. You can infer that. That's true. Okay. But sure, yeah. So they introduce Arkham and yeah, the potential for Arkham Asylum here. But then at the very end, you get the Dollmaker character coming in,
Yeah.
and which was and you get the very last page, which is
Grim.
he skins the Joker's face off the Joker, and the
Yes.
Joker wants him to do it.
Yeah. So you gotta wonder what the hell's going
Oh
on, don't
yeah,
you?
yeah. See, so for that reason, um, I'm gonna at least get the next issue and maybe get that the first storyline just to see where this
Sure.
goes, because what the hell?
Right. Oh, no kidding. There's some nightmares in that picture there. Which then makes me flip back to the cover and look to see what is this comic rated? I don't know.
Teen. It's not
I'm
teen plus, it's teen.
I am really baffled
Ooh.
by the rating system now. I I did a video blog and commented some on the ratings of some of the comics and why they're rated what they're rated. So I'm gonna have to go to the DC page and hunt down to see if they actually have it written down somewhere what the
All
ratings are
that means. I
supposed to
think they
mean.
did when they
And
first
is there
announced it.
and what's the equivalent? What was that the equivalent to? If I were, I mean, is it somewhat like um like movie ratings, or I mean, so is teen supposed to be PG, or is teen? I don't know. Doesn't that seem excessively violent? I mean, I thought it was cool.
Well,
Don't
they
get me
don't
wrong.
show it, and there's not excessive blood. They show,
Somebody's peeled off face is stuck on a wall. Are you kidding me?
but it's a mask. It's like a Halloween mask type thing.
Okay.
I'm making excuses now.
So because it wasn't actually showed them peeling it off his face, that makes it not um pretty relatively horrifically violent in a way, huh?
They don't show it, so yes.
Okay. Okay. So as long as it's implied, it's okay.
Yes, exactly. That's
Okay,
how.
so this comic book is rated teen, and the last one we talked about, well, not the last one. Let's take another Bat title. Batgirl is rated teen. Do you see a difference between these two?
In terms of the violence.
Yeah, or are they the same?
Well, it's funny you pick Batgirl because that whole bit with
The implied what they're
the
going to
home
do to the,
invaders.
yeah,
You know, yeah, there's a lot of horrific
yeah.
implication in that, but yeah, there's no skin
Yeah,
face.
I guess here's the deal: is I let my 10-year-old read Batgirl, and I read Detective, and I'm not letting her read Detective because I don't want to deal with the nightmares that would be involved with
That's true.
this.
Yeah,
So
that is a pretty horrific image
yeah.
to younger people, I would think.
So I'm just curious as how that rating works, but
I agree. This probably should have been teen plus, maybe, but I don't know. I could see where it could be borderline.
sure, sure. So is this new reader friendly? This comic?
In the
Detective?
sense that okay, everyone knows Batman and the Joker, and
Yeah.
so we have basically this whole issue is just a big fight between Batman and the Joker. So yeah,
Okay. I mean, I thought so too. I mean, but this is like I said, this is our first introduction. Well, I guess no, it's not. This is the first full comic with these characters in it. But
wait, is this the first time?
this is the first Joker.
But not Joker, but Batman. This is the first time we've seen. Yeah, yeah, because
Him in his own title.
in Justice League it's 5 years earlier.
Right.
So and we don't know actually, do we? In this one, is this the 5 year later Batman, or is this somewhere in between?
This doesn't say it's anything but the present. My assumption would be if I pick up a comic book and I start reading, it is the
It's
present
the now.
now, unless it tells me it's something else.
Mm-hmm. Because I don't know, I got the sense that, and maybe it was something I'm flipping through it real quick while I'm talking here. I got the sense that this was not necessarily 5 years from Justice League #1, but somewhere in between because of something that I think Batman says, but I can't
Mm,
find it right now. I'll have to go back and look, but yeah, I think that's a
well,
pretty
I mean, all
cool
he does is I
difference.
mean, he talks a little bit about his already history with the Joker and what the Joker's already done.
Hmm.
But
Maybe when I read that, I was thinking for some reason it was not quite the
you
net,
know,
but
and the cops are still trying to kill him, half of them. I mean, because they try shooting the crap out of him with another helicopter.
but that's maybe that's the new status quo with Batman.
Well, that it obviously is. I mean, I think that's pretty. I mean, because obviously he deals with Gordon,
Hmm.
because he shows up when the light gets turned on, but that's not just the standard police procedure like it was prior to the relaunch.
Shall we go to the next one?
Sure.
All right, since this is your fella, why don't you go? Why don't you start off?
Okay, Green Arrow #1, written by J.T. Kroll and Dan Jurgens and George Perez on art. I'm not sure who's doing.
Dan is penciler and Perez is inker,
Is inking. Okay.
which seems really strange to me, doesn't it?
Doesn't it? Yeah.
That
Wow.
that George is inking. He does inks, but
Right.
usually don't associate with him as being an inker.
Right. But I guess he used to. That's where I think he started out inking before he was. But
and he certainly inked his own stuff, like during the Titans run. He did that for a while.
Sure. Well, so, yeah, Green Arrow. Right off the bat, where the hell is his beard? It's not Green Arrow.
Do you not see the stubble on his face?
Yeah, whatever.
He's in transition here.
Oh, he hasn't become a man yet, huh?
There was a time period where Green Arrow was clean shaven.
He was called Connor Hawk.
No.
Yeah, whatever.
Ollie Queen was clean shaven back in the early days.
He wasn't a stud then. So I like the ridiculously curled facial hair.
Yeah.
To me, that's part of Green Arrow. That's part of my memories of cool Green Arrow.
You mean this Travis Morgan look?
Yeah. Yeah. I like it.
I do.
So this whole not having a beard, I don't know. It's part of what made the character, part of the character visually for me was that. And so him missing that, I look at him and my first thought is his son, Connor, which of course I don't know if he even exists in the new DC universe, but
I hope not.
Doesn't matter to me one way or the other. but that's what it reminds me of. Yeah, I mean, I like his new costume just fine. It might be a little busier than it needs to be, but I'm okay with him not having the hat. It doesn't really seem for a hood, but it looks like there might be a hood there.
I think so. He just doesn't have it on.
Right. I was okay with this comic. I don't know that it was like, ooh, wow, fabulous. But I enjoyed it. Maybe I just enjoyed it because, damn, he's finally away from that frickin' forest in the last comic. Because I was really getting tired of that.
That was a lame idea.
I like the fact that he's gone back to, all of his funky toys. I like the fact that because he's always been a millionaire/billionaire. His niche seems to be the equivalent of the Apple, isn't it? Kind of. That's what it seems to me is that his niche for where his millions come from is from the Q whatever
Q
stuff. Yeah, which kind of makes it feel like
one of the characters refers to the Q phone, so yeah,
right.
The obvious comparison there.
Yeah. I thought this comic had what it needed for a first comic. I mean, I wasn't like I said, I wasn't wowed. Of course, my perspective is skewed to some degree because it's Green Arrow, so it's for Green Arrow. The secondary characters that he has helping him now, I'm interested to see more of them and what they're about. I like the fact that he has, people at the home base because I just don't see how you can manage all the stuff that he manages otherwise. So that to me helps make sense of the character or where he gets his toys and that sort of stuff from. They introduce him to these first characters. I don't know. Those villains may be throwaway villains. I'm not sure exactly why he shows up in Paris just to mess with these people, other than they've been on the internet. And so.
Well, he's a jet hopping billionaire industrialist.
Sure, I understand that.
He can go anywhere.
Right, I understand that. But so what made him specifically chase down these guys, though? I mean, that's a question I had. I mean, I don't know. I mean, other than they're, have been making a name for themselves on the internet, being hoodlums, that made them a special target? Or was he just happened to be in Paris and
there they were? Yeah, you're right. That doesn't get explained.
So I'm not sure on that. As far as that goes, I'm not sure what what the deal is with that. Um, but I'm curious about it. I'm curious about the army of people that are at the very end of it and how he's going to deal with
Hmm.
him versus a whole bunch of people. I enjoyed the artwork. I thought the artwork was fine. I thought that there wasn't anything that was totally out of whack as far as that goes.
Hmm.
Um, Ollie seems like a likable guy. He hasn't come across as a misogynist jackass yet. Uh, which is the one aspect about Ollie that I've never really, I don't like, unless of course, they address him trying to be a better person. I don't have a problem with the fact that it's actually one of the things I like about the character in the past is the fact is he has all these faults and he really does try to fix his faults, even though he
Hmm.
self-sabotages a lot. That's
Hmm.
one of the things that appeal to the character. Of course, right now none of that's there, so we'll see. I mean, right now he's kind of Hawkeye, right? I don't know.
No, so why do you say that? Why do you compare him to Hawkeye?
Well, because they both have the same stuff. As far as they're both archers. They shoot a few trick arrows and whatnot.
Hmm.
Um, but some of the things I thought made him different aren't there yet.
Oh, I see.
We don't really dwell much into his personality, other than he hired a guy who's basically a peace-loving guy who doesn't want to make weapons. That's who he's hired to make weapons because he wants to make sure whoever's making him weapons understands the consequences of said weapons. So the two of them don't get crazy out of hand, um, going out of their way to hurt people. I like that little bit, but that's the only thing of much of a personality we get out of him, other than he's a jet setter and likes beating up supervillains, right?
Hmm.
And
Right.
what did you think of the title?
Well, unlike you, I've not been the rabid Green Arrow fan over the years. I do like the character in general. Um, I really like the the trick arrow aspect of the character, so I'm glad to see that's here. Um, actually, based on the buzz that I heard about this comic and before you and I talked about it, it wasn't getting any kind of positive reviews, I guess.
Right.
But when I read it, I was pleasantly surprised. I enjoyed it. It was, a good superhero comic. I thought it was a good number one introduction to this character
Mm-hmm.
for new readers and for even old readers like me coming into it, having not read a lot of the latest Green Arrow series. Um, like I said, I was pleasantly surprised at how much I actually enjoyed it. It wasn't a great comic by any means. I didn't get the same wow factor as I did when I read Action Comics and some of these others, but uh, it was good. I like the changes they made. I like where they're setting him up. I like the fact that he's the billionaire industrialist again.
Mm-hmm.
Because that I think that could provide a lot of story potential.
Right.
Although you get the whole comparison to Bruce Wayne,
Right.
but that's I don't care about that all that much. I did like at some point in here I think, or is it the Mr. Terrific comic? Oh no, it is this one because Ollie makes reference to Wayne Industries and
Mm-hmm.
Holt, which is
Yeah.
Mr. Terrific's. Is it Holt Industries? I don't know what they call it, um, but I like that that they make reference to other um,
The competition.
the competition exactly. Yeah.
Yeah.
So it creates a larger universe for me that I like. So yeah, I enjoyed it. The art was good too. I thought it was very accessible and superhero-y. There are times when Dan Jurgens seems to come out more. Or I'm sorry, let me rephrase that. Where Perez's inks comes out makes it look more like his art than Jurgens,
Right.
but it's not that alarming or jarring. So and I am intrigued now by the group of villains that show up at the end and how
Yeah.
Ollie's gonna deal with that. So I enjoyed it. It was
Yeah.
fun.
This
It was a
this
fun
yeah
read.
this issue really did feel like an old school comic book.
Yeah,
So to me, because
yeah.
it had all those things in it. I mean, it didn't deliver them in a pro way. I just want to mention one thing in here. what the head of the board. His name is what? Emerson.
Emerson.
Right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, keep that in mind because there's another comic book that has an Emerson in it.
Really?
Yeah, yeah. So, and we'll get to it real soon.
Oh,
And I
we
just
are.
thought it was
Okay.
curious.
Okay.
And I just thought it was real curious that there were. I mean, I don't. Is that just an accident? I mean, did editorial not talk to each other and go, "Hey, we might want to have," or are they related?
Oh,
I
okay.
mean, maybe I'm looking, more into it than it probably is, and I probably am. But I just thought I was curious if there are two.
Now, do you know this? We're going back to the past here, but
Yeah.
is Emerson a character that we've seen before? You know, like when
No,
Ollie lost his business and all his money because it was
I
taken over by somebody else,
right.
a hostile
I don't
takeover, I
think.
think.
I
It's
don't
not.
think so.
It's not the same guy. Okay.
I don't think so. He doesn't ring a bell to me, but I guess I don't have. I'm a Green Arrow fan, but I don't have it all totally memorized. But I do not remember. Um, yeah, I don't remember. I don't remember this. I don't remember this character.
Oh yeah, we talked about the competition, and yeah, it's the second panel on the first page where Emerson is talking about the Q Core division of Queen Industries should be at the top, not scrounging around with the likes of Wayne Tech, LexCorp, and Holt Industries. So yeah,
Right.
I enjoyed that little.
Yep.
Um, hey, look, there's a larger DCU here.
Yeah.
So yeah, it
And
was
hey,
good.
look, he's in Seattle,
Oh yeah, that was
headquartered in Seattle.
a nice touch too that he's in Seattle, not again on the East Coast. So so I assume that this is on your pull list.
Oh yeah, it's Green Arrow. Come on, I kept the last Green Arrow on my full list. So yeah, yeah. I'm curious to see where this title goes long term because it was announced not very long ago that Kroll is off the book and that Dan Jurgens and Keith Giffen are going to be co-writing it.
Oh.
So
Oh, well then maybe I might keep with it because I wasn't planning on it. I was just gonna have you fill me in every once in a while.
like issue 4, I think
Oh, shoot.
is where is where they pick up if I remember
Hmm.
correctly. Yeah, the solicitations for December. Yeah,
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 you add
solicitations.
Keith Giffen to the mix, and you have my attention at least.
I just think it's really interesting. It seems to be there's like 4 or 5 guys that DC has doing 3 or 4 comics each,
Hmm.
kind of.
Yeah,
So
and can they keep up the quality consistently
right,
doing that?
right,
It'd be interesting to see.
yeah.
All right, next is Hawk and Dove, and I know that's not one that that's one that you did not read. Is that
No, I did not.
correct? Yeah. Um, boy,
Do you want to
what?
know why?
Oh yeah, why not, Travis? Why did you
I
not read Hawk
I
and Dove?
I, I don't want to pay $2.99 for teeth and no feet. Now,
And Bad Anatomy,
what's the go? I'm drawing a blank on the guy's name that
the
does the
artist,
artwork.
Rob Liefeld.
Yeah, I like him. Everything I've read about the guy, that I've seen his own personal videos that he puts out on YouTube and whatnot. He seems like a really really cool guy. I mean,
Hmm.
he does. He seems incredibly friendly. He's fan friendly. He's really excited about the book. It sounds like he's putting forth his best effort. He's been shooting down the charges that there's no way he can keep up with the schedule of the book, plus the other stuff that he's doing for other companies and whatnot. Like I said, I really like the guy, and I don't want my opinion of his artwork to reflect on the guy. Like I said, he seems like a great guy, but
Hmm.
um, yeah, it's a book that I'm avoiding because I just can't. I I can't deal with the art. Um, I like Sterling Gates, the guy who's writing it,
Yeah.
but this is one of those books, and most of the time I can look past the art to read the story. I'm not a rabid fan of Hawk and Dove. I like the older. I don't. I like other versions of Hawk and Dove. I like better than the old school version of Hawk and Dove. So yeah, I gave this a miss.
Yeah. Well, like you are with Green Arrow, I am with Dove. not so much Hawk, but I love the character of Dove, and so I had to pick this up because I have to support a book that has Dove in it. Um, but my gosh, this was painful. I, like you said, Rob Liefeld. I've heard he's a great guy, but I cannot stand his art in this book. The mouths, everyone has this. There are like three expressions that he can do with faces. The anatomy seems off on Hawk a lot of the times, and maybe that's Hawk is he's supposed to bulk up when he needs to, so maybe that's part of it. But there are times where his body just looks off, which is funny because I think his art, for the most part, for Dove is pretty consistent. So I don't understand that. Um, I like Sterling Gates as a writer too, although I didn't feel like that this was a really strong first issue. Although you do get um, uh, the new reader, hey, here's these characters and what they're about. You get that very clearly towards the
Hmm.
last part of the book. Where we get a lot of talking heads and a lot of dialogue about who Hawk and Dove are and how they came to be and why they do what they do. Um, but oh man, it was so hard to read through this. And maybe if they got someone else to ink Liefeld's pencils, because he did both on this, that would help maybe. Or really, I'd just like to see a different artist on this book. And it's really funny. We complaining about Liefeld's art, but he did the original miniseries that introduced this female Dove,
Right.
and
Right.
that work was pretty good, as I recall. I haven't looked at it in many years, but um, from what I remember, I read that, liked it, and I got the series that came after that, and it was only years later that I realized, oh wait, that was Rob Liefeld on that. Why is it so much better then than he is now? So yeah, this is gonna. I'm gonna continue to get this for a little while, but man, it's gonna be painful to look at the same three faces and
And no feet.
well, actually, he's doing a better job at that.
Is he? Okay.
I know that yeah, I know he's known for basically cutting off the feet in the panels and what. He's actually showing feet, although they're the superhero booted feet that don't actually show anything. They're just basically triangles put together. Um, but one thing I did want to mention on this, um, they do continue the Brightest Day storyline a little bit in that Dead Man makes an appearance in here because he's hanging
Oh.
out with Dove.
Uh-huh.
So they're talking with each other while Hawk is off doing something else. Um,
So they're a couple?
oh no, no, not all.
No.
And
Okay.
I was about to say they never have been, but that's not technically true because towards the end of their series back, I think it was in the 90s, they did get together to a certain degree, and then they killed Dove off. And that's when they made Hawk the Monarch. Remember that?
Yeah.
That 2000 oh heck, I don't remember the name of it, but yeah, the Monarch part of that event that year.
Right.
Um, so, but then they during the next 10 years somehow they came back, um, and so they're not together. They're not a couple. In fact, Hawk is even, instead of being more accepting of Dove like he eventually became in the old series, he's back
Hmm.
to I don't want her around. She's not my brother type thing.
Uh-huh.
And speaking, and not only do they bring in Brightest Day into this, they also mention the Crisis
Oh,
because
good Lord.
that's where the original Dove died.
Yeah, but doesn't that muddy the waters? Doesn't that muddy the whole clean slate moving forward?
But again, DC's has repeatedly stated that some things remain as part of the history, and apparently the Crisis, at least in this book, is part of that history.
Okay, I could see it being part of the history, but why would you mention it? I don't know.
Yeah,
Okay,
you're
whatever.
right. They could have easily left that out and just said Dove died,
Yeah.
saving people, which is what he did. They didn't have to mention the Crisis, but here it is.
Yeah.
Um, and not only that, but apparently this dove had some sort of relationship of some sort with the old dove, which is a new thing. So that I'm intrigued by that. And of course, Hawk doesn't know this, and Dove doesn't want Hawk to know this, or she's concerned that he'll find out. So I'm like I said, I'm intrigued by it. It's going to be a real tough time to get through it. Will our new readers going to like this? Maybe. Did they like Rob Liefeld? If so, yes. If they don't, boy, I don't see people picking this up.
Yeah.
Unless you're like me and you're just a rabid Dove fan or Hawk and Dove fan. But I hope it gets better. I hope that things improve very quickly. Otherwise, it'll be another Hawk and Dove series that goes away, and I have to say a big sigh. Okay. Moving on to Justice League International. Do you remember when we talked about the cover to this book way back when, and we saw that one character in the lower left corner, and it was
you mean the cool looking brunette that was there?
Yeah. And now we get Godiva. Yeah. Oh, those were fun times. Yeah. Justice League International. Okay, so here's Dan Jurgens again. He's writing it with Aaron Lopresti on pencil art, as it says on page 1, and Matt Ryan on ink art. And Hi-Fi doing the colors, that company. Wow, this was a lot of story thrown in one issue, to the point where I was turned off, quite frankly, by it.
Yeah.
And how whereas in Justice League, we're over the next 6 issues of that series, we're going to get the formation of the team, and we've only read issue 1 so far, but it seems like it's sort of an organic coming together. Connections are being made in a logical way, that the storyline supports. Here it's just like, we want to have a Justice League team run by the UN, and here are the guys we want, and okay, go do your mission.
This is the standard throw the team together, first issue comic book, right? I mean, it's
yeah, but did you like it? Did it work for you in that way?
It was messy.
Oh yeah,
it was messy. I like the characters that are in it.
Well, see, that's the thing. Dan Jurgens, I think, is a decent enough writer. I've read enough of his stuff to I like his stuff for the most part. Obviously, he's the Booster Gold writer.
Sure.
And he does a really good job with that character. I like a lot of the, like you say, a lot of the characters, the way they're presented. Batman in here is really interesting.
I hate the Russians, though.
What do you hate about them? The way they talk, or the way the character talks, or
the way the characters talk?
Yeah. That's stereotypical TV/movie broken English.
Yeah.
Thing. Yeah.
Yeah.
That gets.
And I don't know anyone who talks like that. And I talk to.
Do you know any Russians?
I talk to some. on almost a daily basis at work. There's somebody that comes into work and drops stuff off, and they don't sound like that.
Sure.
I mean, they have an accent. There's no doubt about it. And I don't know how I would even begin to know how you would deliver that accent in a comic book. It's something that's just written, but these feel like, I don't know, like a 1980s beer commercial or something. I don't know. The trail of the Russian accent. And it's not that I dislike the characters. Actually, I don't know Red Rocket very well at all.
Rocket Red.
Heck, I don't even really like the way they've written the language for what's the Chinese guy with the really long name?
August General
Iron, yeah.
Sifu Feng.
His is almost as bad. But yeah, I don't like that. I don't like that. And you're right. I felt like this issue was sloppy as far as, well, let's hurry and get it all together and whatnot. And there are parts of it that I thought were kind of fun. But yeah, it's
Well, I don't want to see, like Justice League, like I mentioned before, I don't want to see that structure repeated in another team book. But
right.
then again, this is not what I want to see. This was like we got 14 million characters. We got to get them together and have some action in it, and that's what we got. But it was,
Yep.
like you say, it was really sloppy. It was just way too much. And the only saving grace, I think, one is the art. It's very accessible. It's very superhero-y, like we talked about with Green Arrow.
Mm-hmm.
And then two, the character moments that we get, like between Batman and Guy Gardner. We have a Booster Gold who, yes, he has this reputation, but he's actually a pretty good guy, and Batman trusts him to lead this team. So there must be something there. And then the other characters are just kind of
Right.
there, and some are comic relief, like Rocket Red, and the guest. I'm gonna have a hard time referring
Yeah.
to the guy from China. August. Okay, what's his name? August General in Iron.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm just gonna call him the Chinese
Gus.
guy.
Oh.
And I don't know. I think I heard, or not heard. I think I read Gail Simone's on Gail Simone's Twitter feed that this was one of the sleeper hits, and we should be picking this one up. Do you remember that?
Mm-hmm.
And
Yeah, I'm not sure. She mentioned a few, and I can't remember if this was one of them.
I think it was, and I read this. I'm like, ooh, really? I'm not sure about this one yet. I'll get this one for the first few issues, and we'll see.
Yeah. Well,
Um,
there are lots of people who like this, though.
really?
I've seen other people on Twitter going, "Oh, this is great. This was the hit. This is the one I liked out of all of it." Those,
Really?
of course, are all people who are more Marvel
What?
fans than DC fans. So I don't know if that means something or not. But
Oh, okay. Well, I mean, the potential is there. There's a lot of good elements to
yeah,
this book. It just didn't seem to, and I know I used this word before, but it didn't quite gel for me. It was just
yeah,
throw all this stuff, at the wall and see what happens.
yeah. I'm gonna get the next couple issues just to see if it all does kind of smooth itself out and see where we're at. I'm a sucker for team books, so that's one of the reasons why
Yeah.
I'm getting it. I'm a
Yeah.
sucker for team books. I like seeing a lot of different types of heroes go around, and if I'm going to spend the next 6 months with the Justice League, them slowly putting a team together, which I'm enjoying that. Don't get me wrong, I that's going to be interesting, but I don't want all of my team books to have to be, you know, slowly put together, before it gets up to speed and they start being heroes and start doing hero stuff. I think you're going to end up with this kind of book because I don't know where the in between is. But I've read very few. To me, it feels like issue number ones of team books like this that don't feel like a jumbled whatever to start out with, just because how do you get all that going without it being long and interesting, but painful to get to the actual, they're a team. I don't know what it is, because I guess if I knew what it was, I would be a successful comic book writer writing team books, right? Or
Yeah.
at least the first two issues.
Yeah.
So, I like the art in this book. I've been a fan of Aaron's since he was doing Wonder Woman. So yeah, I'm gonna pick. I'm interested enough to give it a shot to see if it levels itself out.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah.
At
I
some
agree.
point. And hey, this is the other book with Emerson in it. The
It
lady
is.
that works for the UN, she is the Briggs's assistant, and her name is Emerson also.
Really? Wow, I missed that.
Second page, right at the top. My name is Andrea
Emerson
Briggs.
Esposito. Oh,
Yeah.
that's. Oh, okay. Wow. Yeah, somebody at editorial should have caught that. I mean,
So I just think it's odd.
it's not like two people can't have the same name, but and the Emerson and Green Arrow, is that his first name or is that his last name?
I don't know. They just refer to him as Emerson.
Yeah. Oh, that's interesting. I see. When you
So yeah,
said that, I thought you were saying that that character in Green Arrow shows up in another
no,
book.
no, 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 not the character, it's the name, and that's why I just wondered if there was an editorial. Oops, I mean, it doesn't matter. You're right. There's tons of Smiths. There's tons of everything out there as far as as far as name goes. I just thought it was curious that number one
Hmm.
issue they'd have two people with the same.
Yeah.
And the only reason, the reason I picked it up is I read those two comics back to back, and so I was
Ah.
like, oh, hey.
So before we move on, I wanted to ask you that whole bit with the crowd protesting, because we're shown the Hall of, what looks like the Hall of Justice.
Well, they refer to it as the Hall of
Oh, well,
Justice.
it
Yeah.
does. Yeah, you're right. Yeah,
Yep.
so we have the Hall of Justice here, and the hall belongs to the people. They're all chanting this, and eventually,
Yeah. Yeah.
some extremists bomb it, which
Yeah. Whole in it. Yeah.
I don't know where they're going with this, other than to set up the fact that they have this new JLI have to prove themselves to the people. I don't know, but I found that distracting and unnecessary in the story.
Mm.
There was already
Unless it's setting up a story. Yeah, that's true. But I also wonder if it's more going to be along the lines of a story of not that they have to prove themselves, but that it's more of an anti
oh
um, Ado kind of a thing. They shouldn't be the government shouldn't be controlling our superheroes.
well, yeah, they basically say that, I think, in there as well.
Uh-huh.
But see, okay, so that bugs me too, because they're talking about the hall. I mean, the Hall of Justice belongs to the people, not superheroes belong to the people, and so we get two different messages, or
Mm.
one's similar to the other. I don't know. I found it, like I said, I found it distracting and I think unnecessary. And I'm sure Jurgens is setting something up for down the road, but like I said, there was already so much going on in this
Yeah.
book.
In a busy comic, it just added to the busyness to make it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
Yeah. You're right.
Okay, next, OMAC. You did not read that one, did you?
No, I did not read that. I wouldn't touch that with a 10-foot pole. I wouldn't touch it with a 20-foot pole.
Whoa.
I wouldn't touch it with a 50-foot pole.
Do I hear 100-foot pole?
Yes.
You know what?
Oh.
You're missing out, I tell you.
As a matter of fact, when I went and bought the few comics that I bought, quote unquote, off the rack, I wouldn't even buy any of the comics that were touching that comic.
Oh my
You're
God.
only buying that comic because you have never read Dan Didio's Outsider, and Giffen did the artwork on that last issues. If you would have read or glimpsed that big pile of stink, you wouldn't be touching that comic book. I don't care if someone can tell me that's gold. It's the best comic book on the planet. I will not buy it.
Okay,
I
well,
will not.
I'll tell you right
Will
now,
not.
it's not the best one, but I
Yeah,
did
whatever.
get it. Again, this is one of those that I originally was not going to pick up because I had no interest in the. Okay, one, I knew Dan DiDio was writing it, and I knew of your posts on your blog about the Outsiders run he did, and other people that commented on it was not that great. So I was like, well, I don't want to touch that one either, despite the fact that Keith Giffen is involved with it. So I wasn't going to pick it up. But then, the guy at the comic book shop told me that it was one of his favorite books, and he and I seem to have a similar taste in things. So I bought this one off the shelf the last time I was up there and read it, and actually, like Green Arrow, I was surprised at how much I enjoyed it. It was actually a fun book to read, and it's got Keith Giffen doing his thing, which I enjoy, which works really well with this character. I think it's reminiscent of Jack Kirby, which is kind of neat. If you like that, the kind of an artistic throwback, but it's not like he's mimicking Kirby. It's just a similar style, but it works for this kind of for this story, for this character. Like I said, it was enjoyable. I do not think I will continue with it. But as a first issue to introduce a character we actually haven't seen in a very long time. I know there's the whole OMAC thing from gosh, what was that storyline that they did a few years ago where everybody was turning into OMACs? Do you remember that?
No,
Okay.
I don't.
Anyway, Batman had this satellite called Brother Eye, and it was turning people into
Oh, right.
these armored automatons.
And this is the same thing. And
Uh,
this is the same thing.
in a sense, the Brother Eye satellite is there. They show that at the end,
Uh-huh.
and
Uh-huh.
it's communicating with this sort of Hulk-like character referred to as OMAC, sending it on a mission to do a certain thing. And then we find out that this guy, or OMAC, is actually this human character, Kevin Coe, who was
Uh-huh.
taken over by Brother Eye. But Brother Eye
Hmm.
tells him all this, and so there's something else going on. But there is a certain I want to say humorous, but it's not quite. It's Brother Eye is not like your typical uh, robot computer character that you see. It's
Uh-huh.
cold and calculating. It's
Right.
very conversational with the character. It's kind of refreshing to see that. Um, but basically, the OMAC guy breaks into a high security facility and basically commits industrial espionage,
Mm.
which is which is kind of interesting in a way. This I don't know if you would call this a hero book or what, but I don't, visually I liked it and I didn't mind this. I thought the story was okay for a first issue. Um, will new readers
But
find
you didn't
this?
like it enough.
Go ahead.
But you're not going to pick up a second issue.
I don't know. It's like the Green Arrow one. It's like I kind of want to, but I'm not sure yet. So I
Hmm.
probably would. I probably will end up getting issue number 2, especially since I didn't order any of those the the ones I'm not sure about. I didn't order number 2.
Uh-huh.
I didn't order number 1, so obviously I didn't order number 2. So I'll just have to pick it up
Right.
and see. So um, yeah, I'm not sure about it, but I enjoyed it, and it was a surprise. So I like the fact that it was a surprise that I enjoyed it that much. So you should pick it up.
No.
Maybe Dan DiDio will be redeemed in your eyes.
No. No. I unfortunately made the mistake of not speaking with my wallet with the last comic he was on, so I'm speaking with this one and I'm not touching it. This is all passive aggressive on my part. It doesn't matter how great that comic is. Like I said, I'm not getting it after for the damage that he did to the outsiders. No.
All right.
No, no.
Okay, well let's move on to something better. Stormwatch.
Okay.
Who's that by? Paul Cornell writing and artist Miguel. Oh boy, Sepulveda with colorist Alan Pasalacqua. Boy, I'm sure I just murdered that, but yeah, there you go. This was. Well, you go ahead. You go first.
I was really interested in this comic and what it was gonna, what it might be, because
Hmm.
wasn't it kind of basically billed as being they're gonna deal with the stuff that the JLA couldn't even deal with that was going on that the JLA, there I am saying it, that the Justice League was that was beyond them, or
Hmm.
that they wouldn't, that was so huge in scope that they couldn't even note of its existence, just about, kind of a thing.
Hmm.
So I was really interested in that. Okay, what's going to be the team that, and I have a very very limited working knowledge of Stormwatch before this, so I
Yeah.
kind of view myself to some degree as being a new reader going into this, because I really don't know who these characters are. I mean, I know them by name, and I know some of them by, brief amounts of reputation of what I've heard and stuff. I'm interested in this comic, and I'm still interested in it after reading this issue. I'm not excited by it. Does that make sense? I mean, I'm interested in it. There's interesting things happening in it, and there's enough little nuggets of different things that make me go, what's that about? And well, I want to see what more of that's going to be, and that sort of thing. But I don't. But like I said, none of this riveted me. So, yeah, I don't know. I know I'm going to pick up the next issue, but I can't necessarily pinpoint one thing and go, yeah, that, or, oh, God, no, not that, about it. It was very middle of the road for me. How about you?
Oh, wow. See, this was a book that I originally was hesitant to pick up just because, I actually I have a few of the Stormwatch trades, and then of course I read The Authority and loved that for most of its run. So I'm very familiar with a lot of these characters, at least how they were presented before. But really, what intrigued me was the fact that the Martian Manhunter was part of this team, putting
Right.
a staunch DC character, a long time stalwart of the Justice League, put him into this Stormwatch setting with the which are the Wildstorm characters coming in, putting those two together, and them being one disdainful of the Justice League and the other superheroes, and then dealing with those things that the Justice League doesn't deal with or doesn't know about. So I was very intrigued by this and picked it up. But what I was surprised by how much I enjoyed it. When I got done with this comic, this went from a maybe I might pick this up to yes, this is on my list. And it was mostly because of the kind of like the high concept stuff being in here. It reminded me a lot of what Warren Ellis did in Planetary.
Yeah.
And
so that's the part that interests me.
Yeah, and that the whole thing with the moon, the moon developing talons and reaching menacingly towards the Earth. I mean, that's so hokey and ridiculous, but it works in this setting. It works in the sense of how, like I said, Planetary and the Authority, how those how those characters reacted to these events that just occurred around them. And it just, I just really like the ideas. There's this eye thing on the moon.
Yeah.
The Scourge of Worlds, whatever. Just the cosmic ideas that's going on here. I just love this stuff. And you have Jenny Q and I can't remember the guy's name now. I don't see it. Anyway, come across this giant worm thing in the Himalayas. This is just really cool things. And then, of course, you also have Apollo, or the Stormwatch team trying to recruit Apollo. And then the Midnighter shows up at the end, having taken out, and we see
everybody out.
Yeah, and this is typical of Midnighter. He is Batman's Batman in the Wildstorm universe. I mean, this guy is just he's just a guy in a mask with tools, right? But he's very capable, and he's feared by superpowered beings. And here you see in just one page why that is. I mean, he takes out the Martian Manhunter by touching him, essentially, right?
Hook him in the neck.
Yeah, that takes some doing. And so then you get the two of them together, introducing Midnighter introducing himself. So I can't wait to see where this goes and what happens with it. So yeah, this is my Planetary fix in this comic. So Paul Cornell really knocked my socks off with this one, and it was a pleasure to read.
Yeah, I like the ideas of it. I don't know that I'm sold on it though.
Yeah.
But I'm definitely getting the next issue. There were parts of it that I just wasn't I was unsure of. Um, the pilot or whatever the heck she is that's running the thing.
The
I don't
engineer.
get her, but
Well, yeah,
yeah.
and I'm sure that you'll get introduced to these characters more as the issues go on. But for people like me
Okay.
who've read this stuff, you kind of know the character already,
Right.
so you don't need that much to go on. But yeah, I
Okay.
understand.
So then there's one of our questions. Is this new reader friendly?
I think so. I mean, sure, you don't know what the engineer is about or whatnot, but they call her the engineer, and she seems to be controlling this thing, and she's sort of
Yeah, she's obviously the pilot.
yeah,
Right.
she's the
Right.
communications, communicating with everybody. So I think her function defines her as much as she needs to be defined in this issue.
Yeah. I guess the other thing for me in here is there's at one point in here, um, let's see, Martian Manhunter basically makes the comment that I you know I'm you know I hang out with the Justice League or something along those lines.
Oh
But
yeah,
if this is where I come when I really want to cut loose and whatnot.
yeah, I thought that was awesome.
That sounds all impressive. That sounds all impressive. I can't wait to show it. You know what
Yes,
I mean?
yeah,
I mean,
I agree.
talking to a badass and being a badass. Of course, I know Martian Manhunter's a badass. I love the character. And really, if this group really is what it is, this is a much more appropriate place because I've always thought that Martian Manhunter was far more powerful character than most of the other characters on the
Oh yeah,
Justice League.
definitely.
I like the fact that if he's the potential liaison,
Yes.
there could be some, if these comics all survive, there could be some really interesting crossover or not even necessarily crossover, but guest stars in some of the other books and stuff
Yeah.
down the road.
Yeah.
Uh, but yeah, I'm listening to you. I'm interested in this comic. I'm not saying that it's not. I like the ideas of it. I'm just looking forward to it getting to the point where it's actually doing those things as opposed to just telling me about it, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
That comic, I think, is kind of on the fence at my house. The two other people that read that comic
Mm-hmm.
are kind of on the fence. My son, I think he's in for the Martian Manhunter because he really likes that character, and we'll kind of see where it goes from there.
Yeah. Well, I hope you guys continue with it because I'd love to talk more about it with you guys.
Mm-hmm.
Our final book for week 1 of the New 52, Swamp Thing by Scott Snyder, art by Yannick Paquette, and who else is involved here? I gotta flip to the back. I wish they would be more consistent with where they put the credits.
Yeah.
Colors by Nathan Fairbairn, looks like. So Yannick Paquette did the pencils and inks. So, a Scott Snyder story that I actually like. Now, obviously, I haven't read his Batman #1, and I know he was very excited to be on both books, based on the interviews or the panel discussions that he did at San Diego that I listened to, and but I've tried to give, I've read a little bit of his work on Detective. I've read his Gates of Gotham limited series, and I just haven't been impressed. You know that we've had this discussion before.
Yep.
But this I really liked. I was not. I went into this thinking that I would not like it, and I was again pleasantly surprised. And I can see me getting this for a while, if things continue as I think they will. And I like, so you definitely get Swamp Thing into the DC superhero universe because you see Clark Kent, you get Batman, you get Aquaman in the first few pages, and then you get the main character of the story which is I think the 5th page. No, I'm sorry,
something like that.
Yeah, it's the 4th page, and you get Alec Holland the guy who supposedly was a Swamp Thing, but then we found out that no, it was just his consciousness or his I don't know, his thoughts, his memories got into the plants. And anyway, so now he's out of the Brightest Day event or series, Alec Holland is back among the living, but he still has these memories from when, or the Swamp Thing memories, because he remembers stuff from that time period. He remembers being in love with gosh, I don't remember her name.
Some white-haired lady.
Yeah, the man, I can't remember her name now, but yeah, her. Um, I this was just, I said it before, but a surprisingly good book in the sense that, here's this character that literally even us long-time fans know virtually nothing about. Alec Holland died within a page or two of the original Swamp Thing story, and all we've seen since then is the Swamp Thing, and supposedly him as a Swamp Thing. But then it turned out, with the Alan Moore run, that it wasn't actually him. But anyway, here's this new guy, new character, literally, but having ties to the past. I don't know. This thing grabbed me. It was really a lot of fun to read, and I'm really curious to see what's going to happen with it.
Yeah, it's really interesting. He's a really interesting character. I didn't read the Brightest Day or the Aftermath thing, so I'm coming into this just having what I read of Alan Moore's run on it, which of course was fabulous in its own right.
And that works. That works perfectly, I think. Whether you've read Brightest Day or the crappy Aftermath limited.
Well, or having really kind of, in my opinion, having read none of that, because my family hasn't read any. They have zero.
Yeah, that's what I mean.
They start reading this and they're like, so what do I need to know about Swamp Thing? And I go, you don't need to know anything. It's number one. Just read it. And they all really liked it too. I mean, it's some people I think might say, oh wow, it's wordy in places, but it worked. While he's checking, he's throwing the lumber aside, saying not good, and he's talking about the wood rot, and I don't know. It delivers the information that we need to get the basics of what's going on within the characters instead of being just dumping a bunch of information on us.
Yeah, I would not characterize this as being wordy. I mean, yeah, there's a lot of words on some pages, like especially that scene you just mentioned.
Him and Superman are just going on and on and on, aren't they? There's no action. Oh. Superman and him are just going on and on and on. There's no action there.
That's true, but again, it's developing character. So I read it.
I'm not complaining. I have no problem with comics that are that way. I just.
But it's funny, some writers or some creators, it's not just the writing, it's how it's presented visually.
Sure.
But some creators, trying to get a lot of this information across, and it just comes across as, here's a lot of information you need to know.
Right.
Whereas
this definitely wasn't that way.
Yeah, it was just two characters having a conversation, and it made sense and it flowed. Yeah. I liked it. Although I will say, go ahead.
The look of this book is gorgeous too, I think. The art that's in it and stuff, some of the odd panels, that are in it. I like this artist. I liked him when he briefly did some artwork for Batman Incorporated. Yeah. There's little details that just crack me up. There's no reason for him to be there, but they're there, and I like them. I like those little odd details. The fact that I'm assuming that's Lois Lane in the opening panel. Mm-hmm. The fact that she has a mug that's got kiss marks on it. Just little weird little things like that. That just I don't know. I like those little details. I like the fact that somebody is doing a book and they care to put that kind of stuff in. Mm-hmm. Amongst this supposed busy schedule of how do they get this stuff in and stay on point. Mm-hmm. And the other subplot that's going along here with I don't know, the guys getting their heads twisted around backwards and all that sort of stuff. That's just freaking cool. I mean, like I said, this running along the edge of being a horror comic. I like it. I like it a lot.
Well, again, this is part of that dark line.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
So it made sense that and of course, Alan Moore's Swamp Thing also had the reputation of being, a horror comic.
Right.
I don't know that they
Right.
necessarily uh, advertised it as such, but that's what it was essentially. So yeah, having
Yeah.
that come in, oh my God, that the when the first guy whose neck gets twisted around, it's like, what's happening? My neck, no, please, please, and then,
Yeah.
oh, that's just awful. It's great
Oh
stuff,
yeah.
but it's just awful.
Yeah. Yeah.
I really liked, again, speaking again of Paquette's art, he did a really good job, I think, of the plant stuff.
Hmm.
This is Swamp Thing, so there's going to be a lot of plant stuff in here. So I thought, especially that one splash page he did. Well, I guess it's not really a splash page, but where Holland wakes up in his bed and he's got all these flowers and vines and
Yeah.
stuff all around. I thought that was pretty good. And then
Yeah.
also Snyder, the guy must have done, either he's an amateur botanist or he just read up on a lot of stuff, because and that's what makes a good story, right? Is the details that the writer
Yeah.
researches and incorporates. The bit where he helped Holland helped his buddy with his knee by
Right.
having him wrap the cabbage leaves around it,
And then
and
explain to us why. Yeah.
yeah. And the thing, that one page you referred to earlier about the wood rot, they
Hmm.
talked about why that is, and his conversation with Superman about how, most people think of the plant world as this, um, what did he
Passive,
say? Yeah,
pleasant.
passive, calm and gentle, peaceful, but the truth is the opposite. And then we get specific examples. Um, the I'm gonna mess up these names, I'm sure. The sorrel or sorrel choking that blackberry bush to death, and that bittersweet vine strangling the poplar tree, the sapling of the poplar tree, that kind of stuff. And then what happens on the very next sequence is we see this violence. I mean, it's not the plant life, it's animal life actually, but you get the sense of nature as this violent force around us,
Yep.
and I really like that. And I was going to say this about Animal Man much earlier, but didn't have an opportunity. But now that we're looking at Swamp Thing, the book opens with these dead birds and bats and fish, and
Yeah.
the horror aspect at the end of this comic with the flies and the carcass, the animal carcass, is
Hmm.
are we going to have some sort of the red versus the green situation here?
Good.
And maybe
I know those two guys are buddies, and they talk a lot
yeah,
to each other about their scripts.
maybe we're gonna have an Animal Man Swamp Thing uh, uh, team up of a sort.
That would be cool.
Yeah, I just the potential here I think is really good. So this one, again, I was hesitant about it, but I think I'm gonna get this for a little while.
I'll turn you into a Scott Snyder fan sooner or later.
Well, if he keeps writing stuff like this, I may become one. And like I said, I'm looking forward to reading his Batman just to
Yep.
see what it's like. But um, what do you think about this in terms of like a new reader coming in and enjoying it or wanting to read more?
Yeah. I mean, if you like kind of horror, kind of bent kind of thing, I think that this is this would be right up someone's alley. I think it's friendly. I think that you don't have to know. Like I said, everybody else in my house that read this enjoyed it, and they know who Superman is, but they don't have a clue who Swamp Thing is, other than I've squawked in the past about how I think Swamp Thing's cool.
Hmm.
They have no working knowledge of Swamp Thing whatsoever. But yeah, they all liked it. So I think it passes the I read comics but I've never read this before. It passes that test
As well,
um,
yeah.
as well. Now, does it attract somebody who doesn't read comics at all? I don't know. The art's pretty. I mean, I always think that the art's the first thing that's going to either make somebody want to read something or not read something that's not a comic book reader,
Hmm.
right? At all. The cover is gorgeous, I think. I mean, that alone, it would catches your eye. I think
Sure.
if someone was going to offer up comic books to you, here, look at these comics. Which one of these do you might think you might read? That looks interesting. What's that about?
Hmm.
I think it looks good enough to be readable, and I think it would be if you have these kind of tastes in this kind of comic. you'd like it. I
Hmm.
think it works. I think it works all the way around. I think it meets all the goals that DC wanted it to meet, I think.
Yep, yep, I would agree. Okay, so that is all of the 13 issues other than, oh, we didn't talk about Men of War, did we?
Nope.
Uh, well, that's all or it's 12 of the 13 issues because neither of us wanted to read Men of War and we did not. Uh,
Yeah.
did you want to just briefly say why you didn't want to pick that up?
Well, I'm not into war comics, and war in general. And for me, on a personal level, um, with what's happening in the real world and whatnot, the whole idea of it just feels fatiguing right off the bat. Now, some of the creators that are working on it, I like work they do,
Hmm.
and I would really like to support them, but I guess can't imagine unless I start hearing it's something than what I think it is. I can't imagine me wanting to read that just because I read my comic books as much as I like to have some realistic type stuff in my comic books. I read my comic books for the fantasy of it, and um, I can't envision myself wanting to read a comic about war. I guess is why I'm not reading it.
Yeah, and I agree with you 100%. I was intrigued by some of the people involved, but just the subject matter in general. And I know we're kind of judging a book by its cover, sort of, but I just had no interest in that whatsoever, and certainly
Yeah,
not enough to even pick up the first issue and try it out. So that didn't get me DC. So, and there's a couple others like that as well. Um, still to come for us to talk about.
but I know there are plenty of other people who really like war comics, or it
Oh
is
yeah.
this could be that there's going to be a new version of Sergeant Rock or whatever out
Hmm.
there and stuff. So
Hmm. Yeah, his
the niche is
grandson,
there,
from what I've
and
heard.
I think it's great. And I think it's great that DC is willing to put some money behind these different genres of
Yes.
comics, so it's not all superheroes.
Yeah, I agree.
Because you know, I think that's a good thing. So
Yeah, yeah, no, no, that's totally a good thing that they should be doing, and I'm glad to see that they took that chance. I'm just not willing to help them along with that
right.
with that particular comic. So, okay, that's our look at week one of the new 52. We'll be looking at the rest of the weeks as time goes on. Um, Travis, you have anything else to say about week one?
Um, I, for me, I think it was a win mostly.
Hmm. Oh yeah, and like I've said it many times, there's quite a few issues, stuff that I wasn't going to pick up or didn't think would be successful, and I was pleasantly surprised.
Yep.
So
Yep.
yeah, it was a big win for me. Although my pocketbook would disagree with that
Oh
assessment.
yeah, yeah. That's for sure. But a win for DC, and my level of when this thing all first got announced, Doom has dropped dramatically. I mean, there's I mean, I could go back and still look and go nostalgic and go, oh, there's characters and there's stuff that I miss, and we won't even talk about Secret Six and that sort of thing. Um, but no, this isn't bad. What's happened isn't a bad thing. I don't think.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. Oh, I wanted to mention, so when I went to pick up my comics at the comic book shop in Spokane, I was talking
Mm-hmm.
to Matt up there, and I asked him, as I normally do, about how the business in general is going for
Sure.
him. And so I was really curious to see what his response would be about the sales of stuff. Are people
Right.
coming into the stores? Are they buying stuff? And especially since he, like you, when they first announced this, and like many other people too, were like, "Oh, this is an industry killer." I mean, not that you said that, but that was kind of his take on it as a person who sells the commodity.
As a retailer. Uh-huh.
Yeah. Um, since then, he's changed his tune. Uh, and the owner of the shop, Craig, he was very supportive of it. Unlike other comic book shops in the area, from what I was told, Craig decided to jump in feet, head, hands, body first, and ordered a bunch of copies of things, where other people underbought, and
Right.
the demand has been phenomenal.
That's just so awesome.
They have sold out on the first and second printing of Justice League, and they're about to sell out on the third printing of it as well. And many other
Yeah.
comics, many other DC titles, they've sold out the first printings. So at least in the Spokane area, which is 80 miles from where 80 to 100 miles from where we live, um,
Hmm.
the the people are there, the consumers are there buying the product. They're interested.
Right.
So I mean, it's a great sign. At least in this area, it's a great sign. But I've heard that from reading reports on the
Everywhere.
internet, listen to people talk about comics in general on podcasts. Everybody's just going crazy about what's going on here, and whether it's just this is just like a bump, a bump in sales just because it's a new thing or whatever. And yeah, there's the worry that it may not, that bump may not last. That wave will just die down as time goes on, which it will, because that's the nature of business in general. But right
Sure.
now, it's really saying good things about the comic book industry in general, I think, and DC obviously in particular. It's good stuff.
Yeah, definitely.
Okay, well, next episode we'll look at week number 2 of the new 52. Please visit our blogs, leave us some comments. You can also email longboxreview@gmail.com or visit the Twitter feed at longboxreview. Travis has a Twitter feed as well at _Gaunt_man. Please leave some comments. We'd love to hear from you. Travis, we'll talk very soon.
Yes, we will. Have a good one.
All right. Thanks for listening.